My name is Austin Remington, and I'm doing modeling zombie outbreak in a small town. My motivation is the rise in popularity of TV shows and movies about doomsdays of a zombie apocalypse, and this caused me to wonder what the timeline of the world ending to doomsday would be, which I then realized that the world would maybe be too much and too big of a assumption, so then I just moved it into a small town. Some of my goals are to elaborate off past work to configure the time for the population of a small town to succumb to doomsday and an infectious zombie outbreak, and also to determine a simple set of assumptions that can give the time to find the doomsday of a small town. And also, I wanted to regenerate old graphs and plots of other codes to ensure the proper code is being used, and then work off that to find my goal. Some of my related work is a group of college kids in Brazil goes into explicit detail on how military personnel can affect the outcome of a zombie apocalypse, and they try to figure out how to save mankind with figuring out if they need heavy personnel, heavy military personnel, light or regular, and one of their bigger outcomes was they realized it doesn't necessarily matter if it's heavy or light. It just all matters at what point the military personnel comes in, whether it be sooner or later. And then I also found a group of college kids in Canada goes into great detail of how prevention of doomsday can occur with the use of quarantine and cures. And in theirs, they actually use an SIR model that they develop heavily, and they go into more details in a ton of assumptions and variables of implementing quarantines. And then through quarantines, they implement cures, and they find with cures that zombies and humans can actually live simultaneously with certain parameters. For my methods, I use mesoscopic modeling of three populations. I use S being susceptible, Z being zombie, and R being removed, and I use this to create an SRR model. In this, I elaborated and created multiple variables that I adjusted to see the outcomes on the outbreaks, such as A, B, D, but these all represent alpha, beta, delta, and zeta. Some of my assumptions are I did a town size of 2,500 because I just searched up the average smaller town size in the United States. I initially started with DeKalb being 40,100, but I realized that that was just too big of a number to try to determine the population of when that would actually create doomsday. So I choose a smaller starting variable of 2,500. And then my starting zombies, I started with 1. Zombie transmission rate, I started with 0.005. Zombie kill rate by humans, I started with 1. And then background death rate of susceptible humans, I started with 1. For my base model, I actually used my second quote. I used their starting SIR model, which gave me my starting equations. From that, I created an SZR model, which is basically the SIR model, and I put that into MATLAB and got their base graph to create and ensure that I'm doing everything right. From that, I manipulated their starting equations to my final equations, which you can figure from I get the initial +1 with susceptible, zombie, and removed. From that, I have variables to list. I have alpha, which is alpha value and model, which is the zombie kill rate. I have beta value and model, which is new zombie rate. I have zeta value and model, which is zombie resurrection rate. I have delta value, which is background death rate. I have T for stopping time and DT for time step for numerical solutions. For simulation 1, this was more an observation on my path of figuring out how long it would take for a small town to succumb to doomsday. I did zombie kill simulation. During this simulation, I played with the number of zombies that got killed controlling alpha and showed the effect it has on both the zombie and susceptible population. You can see that with more zombie kills, the susceptible population doesn't die off. And with this, you can see susceptibles being with the blue line and zombies being the red line. I went from 1 through 5 with the test, and With one, zombies tend to have a higher growth rate, and susceptibles tend to lead down and die off quicker. And then as you go to R with the time step of zero point 0.1, um, zombies tend to only go up to about 15, while susceptibles carry down around 22 and steady off and don't go to doomsday and do not fully die off. And then Stimulation 2, which was I used the town size of 2,500, starting zombies 1, and the zombie transmission rate of 0.005, and my DT was 0.1. I got this graph through MATLAB, in which you can see the starting of 2,500 and the zombies at 1. I have an intercept around 1,200, and the zombies go up and then eventually start dying off. The humans or the human slash susceptibles, they go down to 2.25 for population or for time, and that's when you get 1.00. So anything after that is when they're actually going to die off. So I figured it was a timestamp of 2.25 for them to fully succumb to doomsday. My results are with a starting population of 2,500 susceptible and one zombie of a time step of 0.1. It will take about 2.25 timestamp to reach 0.99, which means that the last susceptible human has died, resulting in a doomsday. I noticed that the larger the population, the longer it will take to doomsday, depending on the starting number of zombies. I also noticed that more zombies killed in every timestamp in factors of 1 dramatically decrease the zombie population. This shows that with more people and less zombies, the more one individual is to kill will dramatically increase the infectious spread of zombies.